Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses, and this is Raphael's Great Secret by Dr. Jean Mallinger, F.R.C., an article taken from Rosicrucian Digest, Volume 25, Number 4, May 1947. Raphael's Great Secret by Dr. Jean Mallinger, F.R.C. This article reveals for the first time in the English language the great esoteric lesson concealed in the famous fresco, The School of Athens, by the celebrated artist and initiate, Raphael. The author, Jean Mallinger, is Chancellor of the FUDOSI, the Federation of Authentic Arcane Esoteric Orders of the World. He prepared this article in French from information in the archives of the FUDOSI in Belgium. From there it was transmitted to the Secretary of AMORC and translated into English for publication in the Rosicrucian Digest. For a full appreciation of the unusual disclosures in the text of this article, the reader is asked to refer to the reproduction of Raphael's painting, which appears in this issue. Editor. The lover of art who has the privilege of visiting the Vatican Palace in Rome, where so many wonderful artistic works are spread before his eyes, cannot help feeling a peculiar inner emotion when he enters the room of the signature, Camera della Segnatura di Grazia, erected by Pope Nicholas V and which was decorated by Raphael from 1508 to 1511. The lover of art experiences not only a reverent admiration surging within him for these magnificent masterpieces, but in addition, some of the paintings have a strange, inexplicable effect upon him. The soul of the viewer perceives in them the spiritual vibrations of the artist, a subtle message often difficult to interpret. But in this room there is also something else that impresses our mind and arouses our emotion. After we have admired the vault where theology, poetry, justice, and philosophy are represented, and the wall where the memorable fresco, the controversy of the Blessed Sacrament, is painted, if we but turn a little, we are face to face with the mysterious fresco, the School of Athens, which, for the mystical initiate, is the confession of Raphael's great secret. It is in this imperishable work that for the first time, the great artist, who unfortunately was to die soon, on Good Friday in 1520, when he was but 37 years old, opened his soul to the visitors who were susceptible of understanding the secret language of symbols. In the picture of this imposing assembly of the great philosophers of ancient Greece, the initiates have been able to discover something more than the mere glorification of their science, something besides the exaltation of the Greek spirituality, by the precise, unequivocal language of signs and motions of the hands, by the profound and judicious selection of symbols and allegories, by the order of arrangement of the personages, the hidden intention in the minor details. Raphael thus unveiled to us his great secret. In this city of Rome, which was at one and the same time Christian, mystical and chivalrous, and on the other hand thoroughly infused with humanism and classical culture, Raphael gave unquestionable proof that he was a true initiate. The number of initiates being very limited in the mass of humanity, only very few have perceived the signs and have answered to their call. But the Pythagorean initiates at once felt a profound and keen pleasure when reading this hidden book of the Master, and when acknowledging his fraternal confession of affiliation. When the profane, the uninitiated, looks at the School of Athens, he contemplates an immense room where the most eminent personalities of ancient wisdom are presented side by side, as if they had all been contemporaries. He will easily recognize some famous philosophers. In the center of the picture, the divine Plato holds in his left hand his interesting Pythagorean treatise called the Timaeus. He is pointing with his right hand towards heaven, the seat of eternal thoughts and the dwelling of immortals. Near him, Aristotle, holding in his hand, close to his knee, his ethical course of lectures entitled Ethical Principles of Nicomachus, calls back our thoughts to the material world by holding his right arm horizontally, thus pointing out the essential importance of human experience on sensible things. Sitting on the steps in front of them, the famous Diogenes, the cynic, half-dressed, reads with a contemptuous expression a writing which he is preparing to refute by some of the ferocious repartee by which he is so well known. The celebrated Socrates, clad in a green garment, is also easy to recognize, standing on Plato's left side with his back to him, giving a demonstration of his theories. We may see that the artist painted Socrates as he really was in Athens. He is stout, the forepart of his head is bald, and his snubby nose is not very pretty to look at. Among his listeners is a young man in soldier's uniform who looks like Alcibiades. Everyone knows the beautiful eulogy he made of Socrates in Plato's Symposium. Lower down, on the left side, is the group of mathematicians, physicists, musicians, and psychologists. Among them, it is easy to recognize the great Pythagoras. He is seated on the left and is writing notes in a book. A man from the east is peering down toward the book, trying to read it, probably Nicomachus of Gerasa, the mathematician. Near him and standing is a handsome youth in a white robe representing Lysias, the amanuensis and favorite disciple of the master of Samos. Francesco Maria della Rovere posed for this character. Behind Lysias is an old man kneeling and making notes. It is Philolaus of Crotona, of whom Plato bought the works. Standing with the left foot resting on a marble block, carved and polished, Archytas of Tarentum holds in his hand a secret book of mystical teachings, the cover of which bears 4 seals. Finally, lost in meditation, leaning his elbows on a marble table, the celebrated Empedocles writes his Katharmoi. On the right side of the picture, we may see toward the upper part, clad in red attire, Pyrrho the skeptic, who shows with his pointed finger the earth kingdom of matter. Lower in the picture, several geometricians and astronomers are busy at their work. We see Archimedes, for him sat Bramante, expounding a geometrical theorem to several disciples. Zoroaster, standing, holds in his hand a celestial sphere, while Ptolemy, whose head erroneously wears the royal crown, because he must be distinguished from the kings of this dynasty, upholds an earthly globe. Zoroaster's features remind us of Cardinal Bembo. What the uninitiated art critics have also discovered is that in this wonderful fresco by Raphael, Raphael did not hesitate to paint himself. He can be seen at the extreme right side, clad in a white cloak, near his friend Sodoma, who wears a dark red cloak. Such are, more or less, the principal marks which the genuine historical science has been able to find in this famous picture. But all the rest of the essential part, it has discovered nothing, and it behooves initiates to reveal it. We have for the first time received authorization to partly reveal Raphael's wonderful secret. In his work there is a quadruple revelation. 1, that of the association of the young painter with the order of Pythagoras. 2, that of the principle of traditional initiation. 3, that of the intention of calling back to mind the greatest secrets of the Egypto-Hellenic tradition. 4, that of recalling to our mind the principal signs of recognition of the traditional initiatic orders. Now, let us approach this instructive and wealthy reaping of hidden flowers. Was Raphael a Pythagorean? He has demonstrated it quite obviously. He begins by painting himself in the fresco so that there be no doubt about the reality of his membership in the initiatic order. Instead of painting himself with the gorgeous attire of his time, he shows himself modestly clothed and simply clothed with the white cloak, the compulsory ritualistic garment of the order in all parts of the world where it is still flourishing. We shall not be surprised that he was an initiate when we learn that he had given hospitality in his home to an old Pythagorean philosopher whom he had selected as his teacher, Fabius Calvo of Ravenna, of whom he was at one and the same time the generous host, the earnest disciple, and the faithful friend. As a further proof of his infinite gratitude to his old initiator, the young artist did not hesitate to immortalize his features in the very center of the picture. If we look closely at the beautiful head of Plato, we shall know that it is in fact the noble, handsome, imposing and inspired face of kind Fabius Calvo of Ravenna, archaeologist, physician, philologist and spiritual father of Raphael. It must be added that the initiator survived his favorite pupil. 7 years after Raphael's death, he perished, a martyr, under the attacks of the Spanish soldiery who pillaged Rome in 1527. On the other hand, in order to establish irrefutably his perfect knowledge of the secrets of the order of Pythagoras, Raphael filled the picture with the private symbols of the order. It is a fact that the order included 4 degrees of graduated studies. These 4 steps of knowledge are clearly pointed out by the 4 marble steps which lead to Plato. They are also symbolized by the four successive vaults, which, from the background of the fresco up to its foreground, follow each other without being alike. The farthest one, in the simple form of a triumphal arch, has neither decoration nor symbol, for the initiate who begins the philosophical studies is, as yet, uncultured, and must fill his mind with useful knowledge. The second vault bears two columns in its higher part which remind us of the traditional binary of all sects. The third one shows the two principal Olympian divinities. On the left side, the god of the sun, of arts, of light, of poetry, of love, Apollo. On the right side, the helmeted Minerva Athene, goddess of wisdom and logic. Finally, under the fourth vault are the great personages of the ancient world, and this vault bears a drawing which amplifies the famous initiatic swastika. It is also a fact that Pythagoreanism involved a secret symbol, the sacred Tetraktys, the decade, principle and root of eternal nature, saith the golden verses. This essential symbol of Pythagoreanism is clearly represented in the fresco, but being a secret symbol, it is cleverly concealed. We will not see it at once, but if we look carefully, we will see the holy Tetraktys depicted on the lower part of a black board placed at the feet of Pythagoras, under the form of 10 dots in a triangle, and this is a precious detail. The effect of this arrangement is to transform the drawing of a U-tube into the famous character Y, which is another symbol belonging to the essential secrets of the order. On the other hand, the square, which is the exoteric symbol of the order, is clearly represented on the floor of the Temple of Wisdom. The distinguishing features of initiation and the signs of recognition. This most valuable fresco is something more than a mere assemblage of philosophers. Raphael wanted to point out clearly traditional initiation. On the left side of the picture, we distinctly see the figure of a young neophyte who is introduced to his masters. He is neither naked nor clothed. That is exactly as a postulant must be. He holds in his hand his philosophical testament, where he has inscribed the story of his life, an avowal of what he is in his inner self. His two sponsors protect him. One of them holds out his arm and seems to proclaim, "Here is the candidate." And, in order that there be no doubt about this meaning, Raphael shows, directly under the neophyte, the most precise symbol of initiation, an ancient priest, laurel-crowned, reading the formula of admission in a big liturgical book, and the new birth of the candidate is clearly depicted by the young child whom an old man holds in his arms and presents to him. Such is indeed the immediate fruit of initiation. It is a new life. The neophyte is born to a new conception of the world, to a spiritualized existence. Now, and this time to prove undeniably that he knows all the secret signs through which initiates of all times may know each other, regardless of profane presence, Raphael has painted his various personages, making such definite and accurate signs with the hand that they are at once recognized by those who know them and to whom they have been given according to the traditional rule from master to disciple. Here, unfortunately, we are bound by traditional secrecy and we cannot reveal them, for we would then betray the initiate law of silence. But Martinists, Hermetists, and Rosicrucians will recognize immediately and without effort 10 unambiguous signs belonging to the historical secrets of these brotherhoods. No profane, the uninitiated, can surmise or see them, and consequently the meaning of the picture is concealed to him. The Egypto-Hellenic tradition. It is certainly here that the genius of Raphael accumulated a unique summary of the greatest part of the traditional initiatic teachings. As an example, we may quote the binary. The world is ruled by two contrary and opposite powers. These two polarities are represented in the daily life by the two sexes, the two poles of a magnet, attraction and repulsion, life and death, joy and sorrow, day and night, good and evil. The ancients reminded us of the cosmic existence of these two currents by the Yang-Yin, China, or by the two columns of the temples, Essenian temples, or the two Dodorphorus, Mithraic cult, also by the sun and the moon, the two towers of cathedrals, or the two pylons of the Egyptian temples. Following closely the lessons received at the moment of his initiation, Raphael shows the existence of this great cosmic law when he places two columns in mid-air above the second arch, or vault. This binary is also symbolized by the two great initiatic divinities. Apollo on the left side and Athene on the right side. If, in imagination, we divide the fresco into two equal parts, we shall be surprised to note how exactly the painter has harmoniously placed the philosophers, either in the active and solar current, Apollo, or in the opposed current, Athene. Apollo is shown with his lyre. His graceful body is gently leaning on a column. He is singing or reciting verses. He depicts inspiration, poetry, intuition. It is under his radiation that the neophyte is introduced to spiritual life, that the crowned priest reads his holy liturgy, that Plato, Socrates, Pythagoras, and Empedocles, to quote only the principal ones, the fathers of idealism, are placed and are working or discussing. On the other hand, the passive side, that of the goddess Athene, reminds us not of spirituality but of matter. The goddess is neither naked nor partly unveiled. On the contrary, she is helmeted and armed with a spear and a shield. She symbolizes the struggle for daily life, common sense, material, useful, and the necessary cares of life. Under her influence are the travelers, the mathematicians, the astronomers, the scholars who deal in concrete applications. Pyrrho, who points to the earth, antithesis and opposite of heaven, and even the blind man who gropes about in the dark, vainly looking for light. It is also on her side that Diogenes is seated and denies all that is lofty, and Aristotle, who brings everything back to common sense and to strict reality. It is a psychological truth that man is often led to sentimentalism, to lyricism, is made unfit for material contingencies, unarmed for earthly difficulties, soon discouraged, too idealistic and kind. And that, on the contrary, his young wife has a surprising gift for the energetic management of her household, for rapidly realizing things, an ability to fight and work with courage and obstinacy, to have a spontaneous and intuitive distrust of adversaries, and also a true gift in all that refers to money matters. Some persons might object, but why did Raphael, the painter, place himself on the negative side rather than on the solar side, whilst he represented his initiator on Apollo's or the positive side? We have but to study Raphael's life to understand why it is so. He has always been modest, shy, gentle, even weak at times. He has never wanted to be too conspicuous, to occupy the foremost place and rank. He was an idealist, undoubtedly enlightened but attached to the mighty ones of the earth, who, for the good of mankind, trusted to him such lofty realizations. But he compensates for his humble situation. Sodoma too was a hired painter, and he placed him by his side by wearing the white cloak of the initiates. On the other hand, it is a well-known fact that during his whole life many personalities were attracted to Raphael by his charming nature, and he had the rare gift of making friends easily. Contrary to this was Michelangelo, who was somewhat aggressive, jealous, and arrogant. Raphael had a sprightly disposition, felt kindly toward everybody, and Rome was plunged into grief at his death. The initiate must indeed be known by this aura of love that surrounds him, by this radiation of kindness and ready compassion. Raphael is the true type of sympathetic artist, with his graces and surrounded by a kind of magical vibration. Are there any other factors in Raphael's life which may enable us to confirm our Pythagorean statement? Did he deal with other initiatic questions? To this, we shall also answer in the affirmative. Let us remember that he is the author of other distinctly initiatic works, namely the celebrated painting of Apollo and Marsyas, which is one of the most thinly veiled myths of Pythagoreanism which we find, in particular on the walls of the Pythagorean Basilica of the Porta Maggiore, discovered in Rome in 1917, and which can be traced back to the 1st century AD. Apollo is the symbol of the initiate who condemns the profane Marsyas, who dared to challenge him and who was defeated in this encounter. The work was inspired by the verses of the Pythagorean poet Ovid, who relates the action in the 6th song of his Metamorphoses. Raphael also painted the charming history of Eros and Psyche, which was immortalized by Plotinus in his 3rd Ennead and by the Pythagorean Apuleius in his work The Golden Ass. When young Raphael died in the arms of his old master Fabius Calvo on Good Friday, April 4th, 1520, the nation was plunged into mourning. Pope Leo X, whose haughty and sharp disposition was well known, burst into tears. Cardinal Bembo composed his epitaph, and a very strange phenomenon occurred in the Vatican. An earthquake shook the whole palace and cracked its walls. Nature, said Fred Berens, thus associated itself to the people's grief in Rome. But if the famous artist had to leave prematurely this world of sorrows to enjoy a higher life on a more lofty plane where are assembled the souls of wise men, his immortal School of Athens is still extending to us its secret lesson, the grandeur of which has not been minimized by time. He was indeed not only a great artist, a faithful friend, a kind and affable man, compassionate and generous. He has been for us more than that, an initiate and a brother. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.